How long are you going to stay there? Get out and wait outside, you useless old man. During a crucial negotiation with a client that could bring in $30 million in sales, my manager, Lily, tried to pin all responsibility on me. We had discovered that the original material proposed for the product was unusable, and she wanted to make it seem like I was the one who had written the proposal in the first place. Following her orders, I stepped outside to look for someone. But before I could even start, I saw him walking down the hallway toward me. "Oh, it's you, Chris. Is the meeting over already?" I was acquainted with Mr. Smith, the client's CEO. After confirming the reason for the material change, we entered the conference room together. "Do you know who this is?" I asked, sensing Lily's confusion. Unaware that her downfall was about to begin, Lily continued insisting it wasn't her fault. "My name is Chris. At 45, I had changed jobs, embarking on a new chapter in my life. My new workplace was Adams Manufacturing, a company that started as a small metalworking shop. When a major client suddenly cut ties with them, they attempted to come back by creating their own products, which turned out to be a huge success. Now, anyone who hears the name Adams Manufacturing knows them as the company that made those famous pots, recognized by cooking enthusiasts everywhere. I was excited about the opportunity to make my dreams come true here. On my first day, I was assigned to the Planning and Development Department and was escorted there by Mr. Adams himself. However, just as we arrived, he got a call from a key client and asked me to get further details from the department manager, Lily. Nervous since this was my first job change, I opened the door with trembling hands. "Starting today, I'll be working here. My name is Chris. It's a pleasure to meet you all." A woman approached me in response to my introduction. "I'm the manager, Lily. Nice to meet you." I had heard that Lily, at just 30 years old, had become the head of the Planning and Development Department, a person Mr. Adams had high hopes for. Given her young age, I was worried she might have a harsh personality, but her gentle smile eased my concerns. "Mr. Adams has told me a lot about you, Lily. I'm honored to work under someone like you." Even as a newcomer, I was 15 years older than her. While gradually transitioning might have been okay, I should have found it odd that she used no formal language with me right from the start. "I've heard about you too, from Mr. Adams. You enjoy going to afternoon tea, right?" she said. I often went as part of my hobbies, but my real passion was, before I could finish explaining, Lily burst out laughing, leaving me stunned. A 45-year-old man with a hobby like afternoon tea. I struggled to keep from laughing in front of Mr. Adams when he told me. How could you proudly declare such an embarrassing hobby? No one would be unaffected by having their favorite things ridiculed. As I fell silent, Lily continued her attack. "Our company often gets media attention, you know. I can't imagine someone who switched jobs at 45 has any real talent. But I'd hate for people to find out that a creepy old man like you came up with a product that might not sell because of it. None of your ideas will see the light of day." That's all I wanted to say. Lily then delegated all the necessary work explanations to a nearby colleague. The next moment, she returned to her desk as if I didn't exist. Despite what Lily said, not submitting ideas while in the planning department would be like not working at all. Hoping she might change her mind after seeing my proposal, I submitted several, but all were promptly rejected. "Stop wasting paper and my time. I'm busy with Smith's project." Lily threw back the proposal papers without even looking at them. The A4 sheets, still clipped together, hit my face and scattered across the floor as the clip came loose. As I was about to break under the strain, the familiar name of the company brought me back to reality. "Is Smith from Smith Corporation?" "Yes, our important client. Surely you know that much." Smith Corporation specializes in kitchenware. They don't manufacture their own products, but select items they deem good to sell in their stores. According to Lily, they were planning to open a store focused on tea products and we were tasked with producing a stainless steel teapot to be their flagship item. With a price around $100 and being a collaboration between us and Smith Corporation, it was expected to sell well, potentially bringing in $30 million in sales. Mr. Adams mentioned you should prepare the proposal for Smith's project. I guess he thinks of it as a training exercise, but who knows what he's thinking. I understand. I'll have it ready by the end of the day. Lily laughed derisively at my prompt agreement. You don't need to make it. I'll do it all. I'll let you sit in on the meeting, but don't say a word. Understood. Then could I see the proposal you've prepared beforehand? Lily looked genuinely confused by my request. What are you talking about? A newcomer sitting in on the meeting doesn't get to speak. Therefore, there's no need for you to see the proposal. Just act like you don't exist and don't get in my way. Got it. A month later, I attended the meeting with Smith Corporation. Following Lily's instructions, I silently listened to the conversation. The product Lily had developed for our important client was impeccable in both design and functionality. It was the kind of product I would want to buy myself. The client's representative was also impressed, and the discussion progressed smoothly. Feeling unnecessary, I casually flipped through the proposal. Things took a drastic turn a few days later when Lily received a phone call. She stood up abruptly. What do you mean now? Do you know who I am? Wait a minute. After arguing with the caller for a few minutes, she stormed out of the office, clutching her company phone. A colleague who had answered the call first told me it was Tony, our factory manager. Given the timing, it had to be about the product we were developing with Smith Corporation. While I worried, Lily turned with an unsettling smile. Chris, we need to go see Mr. Smith tomorrow. Make sure you're there. Her sweet tone gave me a bad feeling. I'll send you the new proposal once it's ready. Review it before tomorrow. Am I allowed to see it this time? On second thought, you need to see it to learn. Read my perfect proposal and use it someday. Within an hour, the new proposal was in my inbox. Since Lily had quickly collected the previous proposal, and I didn't have access to the files, I couldn't be sure, but it didn't seem like much had changed. It was odd that there were no changes despite the heated phone call. Still uneasy, I attended the second meeting the next day. As I tried to sit down in the client's conference room, Lily grabbed my shoulders and made me stand. Actually, the content presented last time was developed by Chris. Here he is, a promising newcomer personally scouted by Adams. Since he didn't have presentation experience, I did it on his behalf. But this time, he will present himself. Lily whispered in my ear, "Make the most of this chance I gave you." Confused, I began reading through the proposal. Under Lily's direction, there were no changes from the previous proposal, yet I had to start the explanation from scratch, which made no sense to me. I wondered if the client wouldn't find it odd to hear the same pitch again, but they seemed to be watching my presentation with interest, likely understanding that I was new. What on earth is happening? Wait a minute. Isn't the stainless steel composition different from last time? With the client's comment, I finally understood Lily's intent. The more chromium and nickel in stainless steel, the more resistant it is to rust. In Lily's initial proposal, the composition had 20% chromium and 20% nickel. This ratio minimizes the metallic taste and smell to a level even top chefs wouldn't notice. However, this also made the material harder to work with. It was a product that only Adams Manufacturing could produce, and the clients loved it for that. My apologies, but it seems Chris here created the proposal without consulting our craftsmen. We were informed that they couldn't manufacture the product as proposed, so we recommend using 18/8 stainless steel instead. I see. 18/8 is still good quality, but it's disappointing. I'm terribly sorry. The client's response soured noticeably. Sensing an opportunity, Lily moved to get rid of me. Why are you still here? Get out and wait outside, you useless old man. Lily likely planned to pin the entire blame on me if the deal fell through. Following her orders, I stepped outside to look for someone. But before I could even start looking, I saw him walking down the hallway towards me. "Oh, it's you. Chris, is the meeting over already?" George Smith, the CEO of Smith Corporation, and I were acquainted. "No, I got kicked out." "Kicked out? You surprised?" Mr. Smith listened as I briefly explained the situation. Then I called our factory. After confirming the reason for the change in stainless steel, I received the expected response. Determined to point out Lily's mistake in front of Mr. Smith, we entered the conference room. "Weren't you supposed to go back to the office?" Lily fell silent when she saw Mr. Smith enter behind me. "Mr. Smith, it's been a while. Did my subordinate cause you any trouble?" Mr. Smith, visibly displeased, took a seat. "Oh, he's caused a lot of trouble. I sincerely apologize for that. I'll make sure Chris faces the proper consequences when we get back." Mr. Smith, leaning on the table with both elbows, glared at Lily. "Not Chris. You caused the trouble." The force of his words made Lily falter. "Are you talking about the stainless steel issue? While I do bear responsibility for the lack of training, the change in material was entirely Chris's fault." "Oh, even now, you're still blaming Chris. You know the numerous products I've developed, Mr. Smith. Are you really going to believe a newcomer over someone as skilled and experienced as me?" Despite having something to hide, Lily confidently described herself as skilled and experienced, and in a way, I respected her for it. If I could be as thick-skinned as she is, life would certainly be easier. "Do you know who this man is?" "Who? Chris? Who else?" Chris is well known among tea enthusiasts as Mr. Smith. He mentioned my passion for tea had led me and my wife to frequent afternoon tea spots, which I documented on social media, gaining a large following. My reviews would boost reservations, attracting the attention of various companies. While I loved visiting tea shops, I preferred enjoying tea at home, and I had a particular interest in teacups and teapots. When I expressed my dream of creating the perfect teapot on social media, Adams Manufacturing reached out to me, which eventually brought Smith Corporation into the conversation. I was so committed to creating something I could be proud of that I decided to change careers to pursue this opportunity. Mr. Adams told me, "You didn't, did you? Chris must be involved in this project." Yes, Lily seemed to think it was just for training. Embarrassed at being humiliated in front of a client, Lily turned red. Mr. Adams didn't explain it properly. I'd assumed it was just for training purposes. It's only natural to think a newcomer wouldn't be tasked with a crucial client proposal. "So you only had him sit in for training?" "Yes. Is that a problem?" Lily still didn't realize the contradiction in her story. "That's strange. You yourself said Chris developed this proposal. Isn't that contradictory?" Lily, suddenly realizing her mistake, hurriedly tried to explain. "At first, he was just supposed to sit in, but I changed my mind midway and decided to have him create the proposal." Mr. Smith didn't bother listening to Lily's excuses and signaled to me. "I confirmed with Tony earlier. Lily, you've been making unreasonable demands on the craftsman for a while now, haven't you? The product design was difficult to manufacture even for our experienced craftsmen. Moreover, Lily insisted on taking credit for the $3 million deal after the previous presentation. She told the craftsman the client had already approved it, so changes were impossible, and tried to force them to make it. Her outrageous demands infuriated the craftsmen. They refused to make it and even told Tony that manufacturing it was impossible. That was the argument Lily had on the phone the other day. I apologize for the inconvenience, but could we have another chance? This time, let me propose the product I developed. Of course, as long as it's the product Chris developed. It will be meaningful. I'll speak to Mr. Adams about it. The meeting concluded with that. Lily, who was told that the incident would be reported to our CEO, returned to the office with a heavy heart. Over the next few days, I worked on drafting a proposal for the teapot I had envisioned even before joining the company. To ensure its feasibility, I took the proposal to the factory to consult with the craftsmen. I've outlined my ideas here. Considering mass production, do you think it's feasible? The craftsman, though not particularly friendly, patiently explained the points that needed improvement and how the costs were higher than I had anticipated. Lily sat quietly listening to our discussion. Currently, she was under internal review for disciplinary action. Mr. Adams had instructed her to apologize to the craftsman, and she had accompanied me for this purpose, though she wasn't aware of it yet. Both Mr. Adams and Mr. Smith valued her work. They were considering leniency in her punishment if she showed remorse and changed her attitude towards the craftsman. Thank you very much for your time today. I'll make the necessary corrections and return later for further confirmation. After shaking hands with the craftsman, I turned to look at Lily behind me. I had intended to signal that it was the right moment for her to apologize, but Lily, feeling humiliated, seemed to misunderstand. When I present my proposals, you always say it's impossible, but for his proposal, you give proper advice. Sensing trouble, I quickly tried to cover her mouth, but she swatted my hand away. You give this old man's proposal serious consideration because you're just a bunch of low-educated middle school and high school graduates who resent a beautiful, highly educated woman who climbed the ranks quickly. Mixing personal feelings with work is despicable. Seeing that Lily was entirely unrepentant, the craftsman's anger reached its peak. As I considered dragging her out, Tony intervened. Lily, our company's growth is thanks to the skills of these craftsmen. They are our pride, but that doesn't mean they can do everything. We need to discuss what can and can't be done and reach an agreement. I do want to discuss things with them, but they always say it can't be done and refuse to have a proper conversation. You call this discussion. You always send your proposals via email and demand they make it exactly as outlined. Every time, I have to intervene and make phone calls. Consider my position for once. Tony paused, sighed deeply. My dog listens better than you. It's laughable to call you highly educated. Being compared to a dog infuriated Lily. I have a meeting with Mr. Adams. I'll tell him how you're all dragging down our development. I pulled Lily aside to tell her the truth. Mr. Adams heard everything we just said. You're lying. You think I'll bow down to them. Think again. It's not a lie. Mr. Adams was listening to see if you would show remorse and lighten your punishment. That's why he was listening. ###. Here's your script with punctuation and paragraph formatting. I showed her the phone in call mode, and Lily collapsed. No, it's not my fault. It is your fault. What would have happened if the craftsman had resigned because of you? Anyone who can't consider the company's interests doesn't deserve to be a manager. Lily stared at the floor in frustration. A month later, the prototype of the product I designed was completed. When I showed it to Mr. Smith, he was pleased, and the contract was successfully finalized. Lily was set to be transferred to the factory next month. It was a message from Mr. Adams that she needed to reflect while working with the craftsman, but I doubted it would get through to her. She watched me with dark, scheming eyes every day. Her plot became clear. Just a few days before her transfer, I discovered that the same product was being released elsewhere. I was suddenly summoned to the CEO's office and told that a tea specialty store was selling a product almost identical to mine. It had to be Lily who leaked the information. I returned to the office to confront Lily, but she just smirked. You sold my proposal to another company, didn't you? I have no idea what you're talking about. If that's how you want to play it, I have my ways. I immediately visited the company running the tea specialty store. They were shocked to hear my story. It turned out Lily had a contact in their planning department and sold the information to them privately. The other company was shocked to learn that the product they thought was their own creation had been stolen. When they called in the person responsible and confronted them, they quickly confessed out of fear. The other company agreed to stop selling the product immediately. Furthermore, When I showed them the prototype I had brought just in case, their CEO was so impressed that he wanted to implement it in their stores with cafe spaces. This unexpected additional sales opportunity put a spring in my step as I returned to the office. Seeing me in high spirits, Lily realized her scheme had failed. Furious, she threw the file on her desk to the floor. Leaking information involved our clients to another company. You'll definitely be terminated for cause. I was going to quit this company anyway. You'll regret losing such a talented employee like me. Of course, it was Lily who ended up regretting it. After being terminated for cause, Lily struggled to find a new job. While she could have quickly found work if she wasn't picky about the job type or company, she refused to settle for anything less than a prestigious firm. Rumor had it she was contacting all her former colleagues, begging them to introduce her to companies they knew, but no one could recommend someone who was terminated for cause. Without any leads, Lily ended up working a temporary job inspecting products at a factory, claiming it was just until she found something better. However, her habit of looking down on factory workers got her into trouble. She got yelled at daily with comments like, "What's with that attitude?" and ended up crying and begging her former colleagues for help. For her own sake, I thought it best to leave her to reflect on her actions. 6 months after Lily left, the teapot I designed was finally released. It was an unexpected hit, with production struggling to keep up with demand, much to the delight of Mr. Adams and Mr. Smith. One Saturday afternoon, I made tea with that teapot and served it to my wife. This is delicious, as expected from something you put so much effort into. It's really special. Proud of the compliment, I started explaining its features. I made sure it has a round shape to encourage jumping, and it also retains heat well. My wife smiled warmly as she listened to me passionately talk about the teapot. We didn't have children and had chosen to live our lives together as a couple. These moments of enjoying tea together were precious to us. For both my wife and myself, I wanted to continue working on developing products that enhance our